Nebraska just wrapped up an absolutely monumental recruiting weekend and over the past couple hours. I've learned inside nuggets on everything that happened. What's going on? Four-star defensive tackle Valdin Sone. How did his trip to Lincoln go? Is Nebraska now the favorite? We have a lot to talk about when it comes to him. What about the other four-star prospects on campus? What about in-state defensive back Darian Jones? A couple other players who I expect to commit very, very soon. Personnel updates on CJ Brana, Kam Wilson, Luke Sorensen, and a couple other big-time prospects. So really quick, this is a loaded Nebraska recruiting update. You're going to want to watch the entire thing because it is nuts. Hit that like button if you're fired up. And also, we're getting so close to 12,000 subscribers. Let's hit it this week. If you're a diehard Husker fan and you enjoy daily content talking to your favorite team, it is a no-brainer. This is the place for you. It takes 2 seconds. Please hit that subscribe button. Help us at 12,000. Thank you so much. But without further ado, let's get into it. We have a lot to talk about recapping Nebraska's entire recruiting weekend, and I want to get things started with arguably the biggest name on campus, arguably the biggest name the Huskers are going after in this entire 2026 class, none other than borderline 5-star defensive tackle Valdin Sone, freak athlete, listed at 6'3", 315 pounds. Now, we know that his recruitment has been a complete roller coaster to say the least. He was initially going to visit Florida this weekend. He canceled that to go to Georgia. And then the night before said, you know what? I'm going to cancel that Georgia visit as well. I'm going to go to Lincoln, Nebraska with my agency, with PPI Recruits. So that Friday night, he showed up, and turns out he had an A++ visit per sources. Now, there's a couple things that really worked for Valdin Sone. Now, number one, he is continuing to build that great relationship with Terry Bratton, with not only him, but EJ Barthel, with Matt Rule. Matt Rule spent a lot of personal time with Valdin Sone. You see it with my tweet here. That's him in his uniform. The big ticket, that's a big man. They got a retweet from my man Valdin Sone and Brandon Collier, which is his agent. But listen, Valdin Sone, he had a great time building that relationship with a lot of members of the coaching staff. He had dinner with the staff, had dinner with Matt Rule. There were some murmurs that maybe a couple members of his family also made the trip to Lincoln from Sweden. So we know that Nebraska, they're trying to get the family involved there. We know that Terry Bratton visited them a couple weeks ago. So they're pulling all the stops here, man. They're doing whatever it takes to get Valdin Sone. They compare him to the Ndamukong Suh all the time. He could be a game changer at that 3 technique or nose tackle spot. So Nebraska, they definitely put themselves in a very, very good situation after this visit. Now, what's going on with his recruitment? Will he end up committing to Nebraska? Now, it's been reported that he's trying to commit around that July time frame, but it's also been reported that over the past couple months, it has become a NIL battle. And this is something that I fully anticipated to happen. I told you guys this over the past couple months. If this becomes an NIL battle, Nebraska will be aggressive, because Nebraska, historically, they're not going to, try to throw out a bunch of $100,000 to these high school kids. They're just not going to do that. But I told you there's 3 exceptions in this class. There's 3 players that if it comes down to money, they will be aggressive. Number 1, CJ Brana, current Nebraska commit. Number 2 is Kelvin Obot, borderline 5-star offensive tackle. And the number 3 is Valdin Sone. So the inside scoop after the visit to Nebraska was that it went very well. Nebraska is a finalist along with schools like Florida, Georgia, Oklahoma. Really, those are the schools to be worried about, along with Auburn. So those are kind of the top 5, top 4 there. Nebraska is absolutely involved. But more than anything, it's going to come down to relationships, and it's going to come down to money. That's just the way it is. I mean, everything's going through his agency. His agency cares about money. That's the way college football is going. But just know Nebraska, they will be aggressive. If it comes down to money, just know Nebraska's not going to get outbid. I don't think so, unless it comes down to millions, which it won't. Nebraska, they will be aggressive here. They want him as badly as any other player in this class. Their entire D-line class depends on him. So just know if it comes down to money, we're going to be just fine. But this is something you're going to have to watch out for. But talking about the visit itself, it went very, very well for Valdin Sone. He had a great time in Lincoln per reports, per the people I talked to. Had a pretty good source here. You can infer on who that was. All right, talking about the other players who visited Nebraska, a couple other big-time 4-star names. Let's talk about Calvin Thomas, who ended up making the trip. This is a 4-star linebacker coming out of Cypress, Texas, pretty much down in Nebraska, North Carolina, Michigan, Texas, SMU. He needed a really good time. He said the coaching staff showed out. It was his first time in Lincoln. He said, you know what? It really surprised him. It wasn't really as small of a town as he thought. It's definitely a football town. He really felt like it could fit him. So had a really, really good time in Lincoln. He loves the coaching staff, loves Rob Dvorak. He said that he wished he visited a lot sooner. He said that he's going to decide basically in a month's time in July, which is the same with a lot of these prospects. But, my feeling from this Calvin Thomas recruitment is that Nebraska might just be a little bit late here. I think the favorites right now, North Carolina is probably the favorite, and then Texas is, Texas wants them. I feel like Texas is going to get them. That's the way it is with Texas recruiting, right? If you're from Texas and Texas wants you, the Longhorns are going to get you. So Calvin Thomas, he's a freak athlete. He's somebody who's super, super speedy. He's a track athlete. Nebraska wants Levante Davis. They want Terrell Farley's again on this linebacker core. That's what Calvin Thomas is. It just feels like Nebraska, they're getting involved too late here. Again, it's kind of like a Michael Terry thing here. If he waits until the fall and comes on another visit, I like our odds a lot more. But if he's going to wait and commit in July, which is the plan, don't expect Nebraska to land him. But he had a pretty good visit from what it sounds like. Then Jacob Eberhardt, another guy who really was impressed. I think Nebraska's in a very good place to land him. This is somebody who's an athlete coming out of St. Louis, 6'3", 200 pounds. Nebraska's recruiting him to play defensive back. Now, going into this visit, Nebraska, while they've been after him for about a year now, they really hasn't visited too many times. Really didn't know if Nebraska was very interested here. But Jacob Eberhardt, man, according to him, they left a big impression on his mind. He was peer recruited by Jamarion Parker the entire time, which is also a St. Louis guy. A lot of the St. Louis players and coaching staff, they were meeting with him. So Jacob Eberhardt said that, right now it's down to Nebraska, Illinois, Missouri, and Oklahoma, who he's going to visit last. Nebraska, I would say probably the favorite alongside Missouri and Oklahoma. I'm not really too worried about Illinois there. He said that the staff was very genuine. And I also want to show you this. He took a picture of Matt Rule. It's went absolutely viral. Basically, they were taking pictures on the tractor with all the recruits that are on campus. And Matt Rule is like jumping off the tractor or something, just looking a fool, man. Matt Rule's a funny guy. He's just he's like unintentionally funny. But anyways, the guys love that. They love Matt Rule, which is, he's such a genuine guy. So that was something that Jacob Eberhardt talked about. So this is somebody who, once again, probably trying to commit around July, late June. Nebraska's in a good place. Would expect Nebraska to really have a chance here to land him in that secondary. A couple other guys here. Darian Jones. Ooh, we have a lot to talk about when it comes to Darian Jones. So we knew that this was a monumental recruiting weekend. I told you guys it's pretty much Nebraska or Iowa. Not really worried about Minnesota. Not really worried about Iowa State. It's us or the Hawkeyes. That's how it should be when it comes to Darian Jones. Couple things going for us. His brother's on the team, and he's from Omaha. He wants to ideally stay home. What's going against us is he grew up to be an Iowa fan. His entire family grew up to be Iowa fans. So the thing about Darian Jones is, I honestly think Iowa right now is the favorite. At least that was the way going into this visit, but he had an A++ visit per sources. His family had a great time. It was a family atmosphere. His brother Donovan was peer recruiting him the entire time. They took photos together. Matt Rule spent a lot of personal time with him as well, which is very important to Darian. He did not expect that, but Matt Rule made it a point of emphasis to pull him aside a couple times, say, hey, we want you here. So I think Nebraska, they're in a way better position than what they were a week ago. Again, it's going to come down to us or the Hawkeyes. Iowa's going to roll out the red carpet next week. They're getting the last visit, which is very important. Ideally, again, he's committing on July 4th, so mark that on your calendar. That's set in stone, July 4th, us or the Hawkeyes. I think it's going to come down to family. I really do. And I think he wants to play with his brother, and that's why I believe that he's going to make the tough decision. I think maybe his heart's going to tell him to go to Iowa because that's a team he always rooted for growing up. But I think, playing with his family, staying home, I think that's going to mean a lot more for him. And I think he's going to commit to Nebraska when it's all said and done. He had a really good visit. And shout out to Matt Rule for making that point of emphasis to meet with him a bunch of times over the past couple of days. Then Jamal Rule, he had a solid visit. He said that he loved talking to Holgorsen about how he's going to fit in the offense. He said that he's pretty much down in Nebraska, Michigan State. I think Virginia Tech's also in there. So we'll see what happens here, Jamal Rule. It sounds like Nebraska wants him. Again, in my opinion, he's the third running back on my board. I'd rather have Brian Bonner 1, Devin Walker 2, Jamal Rule 3. Jamal Rule's a good running back. He's probably a little underrated, but again, Nebraska's in a good place. But what do I know? If the coaching staff wants him, they can go ahead and take him. But it looks like pretty much down to us at Michigan State. He's going to visit Michigan State next week. I know this is Boston College. He will be at Michigan State next week, so I wanted to mention that. And then Leon Noel Jr. had a good time. This is he's been rising up the recruiting rankings as of recently. Interior lineman coming in from Louisiana. He said that he felt very wanted at Nebraska, which is very important. The coaching staff, they want him to be there. They want him to commit pretty much immediately. There wasn't any pressure on him, but they just really wanted to make that a point of emphasis. Now, he's going to a bunch of other schools. He's visiting Houston next week, Mississippi State. He's already went to Baylor in Central Florida. So somebody's recruitment's still wide open. I don't know if Nebraska lands him long term, but he said that they really made him feel like a priority. That was important to him, so just would watch out for the name. He's going to commit. He's committing July 7th, so feel free to mark that on your calendar. Then I got a couple interesting nuggets around C.J. Brana. Now, we know that while Nebraska, they had a great visit with him last weekend, he still decided to visit Florida State this weekend and Penn State next weekend, and he had a really interesting quote. After his visit to Florida State, he said that Florida State moved the needle and that they're in a better position. However, he said this, and I quote, "I'm still going to take this last visit to Penn State, but I'm still very locked in with Nebraska. Obviously, things can change, but right now it's still Nebraska." Reminder, he said that after the Florida State visit, after the Florida visit. So what it sounds like to me is that he's still deadlock commit on Nebraska. He's going to give Penn State one opportunity next weekend, and he's going to shut things down and end up saying, hey, I'm a Nebraska commit. Nothing's going to change that. So it should be noted pretty much, okay, Florida impressed him, but not enough. Florida State impressed him, but not enough. Penn State has one last opportunity, but Penn State already has 6 defensive back commits. And Penn State's probably the lowest team on the totem pole here. So I think, he's going to take a free trip over to there. I don't blame him. Hey, take that free weekend trip, get some free food. And then at the end of the day, he's going to say, yeah, I'm a Cornhusker. So feel good about that quote from CJ Brana. Luke Sorensen is committing the 20th, which is this Friday. I thought maybe he was going to commit before then. I think he's going to wait until that day, but just know it's Nebraska here. Feel really, really good about that. Luke Sorensen, it will be Nebraska. Kam Wilson, again, there was a lot of initial smoke. He was going to flip to Nebraska after last weekend. He has opted to take all of his remaining official visits. So obviously went to Syracuse last weekend, going to Florida State the weekend after that. He's also going to make a midweek stop at USF. So Kam Wilson, somebody where I think Nebraska's still in a good place here. He had a good time at Syracuse. It's tough to say, but I think it gets still in July. Probably we're going to flip him just because that relationship with Philip Simpson is just really important. But Syracuse, he had a good time there, which, as you'd imagine, he's a commit. So we'll see. I mean, he's somebody who, I will say this about Kam Wilson, I'll be brutally honest, he enjoys the spotlight on him. He enjoys the murmurs. Like, he enjoys people saying that he might flip. So maybe he's feeding into it a little bit. Maybe he's not actually going to flip. But I think he will. I think he will, and I still think it's going to be a recruitment that's going to be very open for a very long time. And then Larry Miles, want to report this. It has canceled his visit for next weekend. Nebraska got involved here as of late. He visited like 2 weeks ago, and then he was going to come next weekend, and then he ended up canceling it. So Nebraska's receiver board is just a mess. I don't even know what's going on with the receivers. And then speaking of receivers, Nayland Scott ended up not making the trip this weekend. Now there's still murmurs he might make it next weekend. We'll see. I don't know with Nayland Scott anymore. I just don't know. We'll see if he ends up making the trip. But that's completely wide open. Arizona State's doing whatever it takes to have him not visit. So Nebraska's receiver board's wide open. As of right now, we only have one receiver commit, and that guy's probably not going to be committed for much longer. Well, I don't know when that's going to be announced. I anticipate it to be announced probably by the end of June, maybe in July. But Nebraska, right now, for what it's worth, really, we have 0 receiver commits. And Jaden Warren's not even visiting anymore either. So I couldn't tell you what's going on at the receiver position. It's best not to even speculate. So I'm a little concerned about that, even though I trust Akil Shorts a lot as developer and as a recruiter. So wait and see. Wait and see. All right, guys, let me know your thoughts down below about everything. Hey, if you made this far in the video, you know what to do. Hit that like button and subscribe. Let's hit 12,000 this week. I appreciate all of you. As always, folks, go be great. Go on, and I'll see you in the next one.